Hi, my name is Leanne May. This is my presentation on long-term and healthcare. I interviewed Mr. Doug Jones, who is a healthcare administrator with 30 years of experience in acute care settings as well as across the continuum of long-term care. I was primarily interested in how the history and background of long-term care had informed current practices, roles and responsibilities, and workplace objectives of administrators currently in the industry. And then Mr. Jones was able to provide some real-life examples as well as gracious enough to offer some recommendations as to how to be an effective healthcare administrator. So, regarding history and background, the evolution of long-term care has been primarily influenced by a decline in the familial care offered by family members, and how that's encouraged the development of both self-contained systems as well as freestanding facilities, the introduction of swing beds, and then the certification of staff, which has ultimately impacted and influenced the changing responsibilities and then structure and delivery of long-term care. I asked Mr. Jones what kind of current practices were in place in long-term care, and he informed me that ultimately Medicare is the spearheader of long-term care through reimbursement as well as practice modalities, that they set the standard, and that after the fact, Medicaid, long-term care insurance, and private insurance eventually follow suit as a way to mitigate liability. He also informed me about the role of long-term care insurance and then what it does and doesn't cover. We both agreed with the Eden alternative and Dr. Thomas's perspective about care over treatment. And then we discussed at length staffing ratios and how things such as Medicare certification of the facility as well as state certification of the facility and staff regulate long-term care and then therefore the quality of the care delivered. A lot of the roles and responsibilities of healthcare administrators seem very self-evident, and I could tell that Mr. Jones took his role as a healthcare administrator very seriously. He truly has a passion for long-term care and for truly caring for the residents under his charge as well as his employees. So things such as staying on top of regulations, driving policy change, building relationships, maintaining licensures and certifications of both staff and facilities, advocating current practice, and then hiring quality staff members over quantity, so not just filling the post, by also being aware of the politics of personalities and workplace dynamics. Mr. Jones very much exemplified to me the ideal of personal responsibility as reflected in the verse from Ezekiel 18 that the Bible calls us to. I asked Mr. Jones what the primary objectives were of a healthcare administrator, and he said that ultimately to deliver consistently high quality care is top priority. But in order to do that, you need to make sure that you adhere to state and federal regulations, which help influence the ability of a facility to hire qualified and competent staff with the correct training, certification, and or licensure through things like behavioral interviewing and panel interviews. By hiring qualified and competent staff, you decrease the turnover rate of employees, you increase productivity, you increase the quality of care, and you ultimately create a just culture, one that emphasizes working together as a team. Mr. Jones provided some examples of experiences that he had while working in healthcare administration, things such as having to report on abuse and neglect of employees to the reporting agencies and the situations that ensued from that reporting, as well as things he had heard interviewees say in interviews and just having to keep a straight face and discuss privately whether or not that person was actually going to be hired. And then, of course, the history that he had in operating self-contained versus freestanding facilities and his preference for the self-contained given the smooth transaction and ease of communication that results from everything running within one system. And he also mentioned that, again, that changing certification and licensure of staff, particularly the LPNs, has changed dramatically the face of long-term care and how it's delivered. Some of the recommendations that Mr. Jones made as far as how to be an effective healthcare administrator were to go to the meetings and learn so that you can know your staff and have a presence, as well as getting in the mindset of your resident, and that it was absolutely imperative that you be consistent and fair, always follow protocol, speak up when mistakes, abuse, or neglect occur through mandated reporting, and to always address issues with creative, practical solutions. As I said earlier, Mr. Jones clearly has a heart for long-term care, and I really feel he exemplified the person that's talked about in Colossians 3, verses 23 through 25, and then Deuteronomy 6 through 18. He makes it very clear that all humans have equal value, that we are called to love others, and to do that, we need to live by the example that Jesus Christ has set of servant leadership.